AI has killed pen testing. It's dead because AI can just do it. So it's dead.
Absolutely not. It's not that AI is killing pen testing. AI is enhancing pen testing. It enhances what we are already doing. If you have a good pen test process, it makes you faster. It makes you better.
We are the Keyboard Samurai, a podcast about the business of cyber and tech, here to help you or your business improve. Here's your host, Will Clue. Let's hack into it now.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Another Keyboard Samurai podcast. Like, subscribe, all that cool stuff that helps the channel. Today, I'm excited. A return guest. Nat was probably my first couple of weeks doing this on the show. So when I reached out, was like, hey, I got a topic I think you want to talk about. So, Nat, why don't you give everybody the 30 seconds of who you are and why we care?
Yes, so I'm Nat. I'm currently the product security manager at a company called Skillable. I've been doing pen testing now for a little over 10 years, almost 11 years coming up here. And it's exciting to see all the different changes that have happened over that long of a span. And I'm excited to see how it continues to change over the next 10 years.
Yep. So let's just get into it. I haven't said this exactly, but I've heard other people say it, and I've had young people getting into the industry ask me where they should spend their time, and the whole idea that basically AI has killed pen testing, right? It's dead because AI can just do it. I've definitely heard somebody say, yeah, I've seen it'll just run a red team engagement better than like a whole team of people will, and in like a minute, and it's done. So it's dead, right?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And it really does crack me up when people make that argument. I tend to think those are not serious pen testers, or they are selling AI pen testing, which is very often the case. I did have a small debate with an AI CEO. It was creating a pen testing tool, and it was very cool. It was, again, a very cool tool. It does do a lot of really cool stuff. And he was trying to make the point that they had the external network side of things almost solved, which, all respect to network, especially external network pen testers, especially these days, there's not that much usually on an external network, especially with the customers that are actually aware enough to want to hire pen testers. The first thing that they're doing is, securing down the external network. So maybe you find some web ports, maybe you find, an exposed RDP, but there's usually not a lot that you can do when it comes to the external network. So that the AI could do that, run some scans, find some stuff. That's usually okay, great, super happy for it. The internal network, I think, is cool. It's very cool where AI is getting very, very good. And it's able to chain certain exploits and get it all together. And again, it's not that AI is killing pen testing. I think AI is enhancing pen testing. It's becoming very, very cool. It's becoming easier to find critical vulnerabilities and chain them together. One of the biggest things about pen testing over vulnerability scanning is proving impact, right? Showing why should we care. And it's very often that either a pen tester doesn't really know how to exploit something effectively or how to communicate or explain it. And in that regards, AI is fantastic at creating some of those scenarios or whatever it might be to help the pen tester. But it's still a tool. It's running a specific process that you prompt it for, or that it provided instructions for. And there are still scenarios where it's finding new information, but that new information is, again, based on prompts, based on the inputs that you are providing. And so I'm still seeing it, and the people that I'm seeing using it, the real pen testers that I'm seeing using it, they're all saying the same thing. It enhances what we are already doing. If you have a good pen test process, it makes you faster. It makes you better. It helps you find more critical vulnerabilities, more efficiently, so that you can focus on some of the smaller stuff. Let me rephrase that. Very often, it does help you find some critical vulnerabilities, but I think also one of the key areas is it helps automate a lot of the mundane stuff that pen testers hate doing. The SSL, the man in the middle, all these sorts of things that are in almost every pen test, especially internal network. There's a whole list. But most pen testers can rattle off, those dozen or so vulnerabilities that they always find, never exploit. It's never fixed. And so the AI can go through, test those, validate those. I've heard some stories. It's doing some very cool things with man in the middle and actually proving impact, because it can set up some of those complicated scenarios that pen testers never have time for. So that is also very cool. I'm jumping to topic over topic.
I love it.
How AI works here. So, so the AI can do a lot of that the AI can do a lot of the automated stuff that is in every single scenario, and leave the pen tester more time to focus on critical vulnerabilities or issues that they don't see that often, or something that they look at and go, I think that's something. And in a normal pen test, I'd have maybe 30 minutes to see if I pivot it and get it to do something more than what it's just the error that it's displaying. But now that the AI has automated, so many of the mundane tasks, now I have 2, 3, maybe even 6 hours to really fully analyze this, specific instance here.
The more time to analyze, I think, and I love that you caught yourself on the smaller, because it's not finding the smaller thing. It's finding the thing that takes more time to exploit, like the thing that actually, like, there's an attack path for this, but like it's going to take us a lot of time. And as somebody who's sold pen tests longer than you've been pen testing, I like when you said all that stuff around the external network. I remember because I was working in an enterprise company, so most of our clients are fairly large, and doing an external pen test was a big deal. But you get a smaller client, and like you'd only find a couple of things. Like, and I know, like, I had some amazing pen testers. We pwned everybody. Like, I knew it was 100%. And later on in my career, I noticed that the companies I was working for, it was not 100% pwn rate anymore, because they'd gotten mature and they just, we figured out how to lock the external down. And now it is. So I do want to dig into that next part, which is, it is about that time efficiency and being, so as a CISO or a CEO of a company, and I'm thinking about, having my pen testing, should I keep the same price and assume I get better results because you have more time to do it? Or should I figure that AI is going to reduce the effort and I can get the same thing for a lower cost?
So that's a big business decision. I absolutely think any good pen testing vendor at this point should have some options for AI in terms of how they use it. The problem, I think, most often right now, and I think this will get better, but right now, I think with the external models, your Claude, your Copilot, your ChatGPT, those sorts of things, customers aren't necessarily going to want you sending their data to those.
No.
And not every vendor right now, the big ones, sure, the Trusted Sec, the Rapid7, I assume that they have some local models that they're able to
SLMs
use.
are running, yeah.
And that's fantastic. That's really kind of the best, of both worlds sorts of things, where you can get the power of the AI without compromising, your customer's data in any respect there. But not every vendor is going to have that capability quite yet. I think it'll get better, but right now that's just not there yet. So you're still going to have those kind of models where you might say to the customer, hey, I've proven some really cool things with AI. It makes things a lot more efficient and better. But the customer says, yeah, but we can't share our data with them. That's just not going to work. So you go, okay, so we're going to do a traditional pen test now for right now. And I've written a few posts and articles about, how you can still use AI even in that sort of situation, where you can use it more as a task manager, or you can use it more as a, hey, I'm seeing something funny, without getting into the details of this is the customer and this is the app and these are the endpoints. Just hey, I'm seeing something funny, talk generically about it and get some advice or get some ideas about, where you can go or how you can pivot into the next thing. So I think there's still value in AI. It can still enhance what you're doing. But in terms of pricing, that's really going to come down to, can you prove that the AI is providing more value? Yes, you're testing faster, but the AI is probably costing you extra as well.
Yeah, there's always that.
So maybe ultimately it's all a bit of a wash, and it's the pricing all stays about the same. Or you look at it, I think you're still challenged by some of the AI pen testers that's fully automated. I tend to argue that's just a fancy vulnerability scan.
Yeah, right. That's not really pen testing.
And it's not really pen testing. Now, some people get all up in arms about that, and they say, well, yeah, vulnerability scanning is good though, right? I say, yes, absolutely. Like it should be a part. And if you have a budget for vulnerability scanning, if you're using Nessus or Nmap or whatever you're using for scanning, and you replace that with an automated AI pen testing tool, that's great. That you're just getting better vulnerability scanning. But it's not quite the same level as a pen test that actually takes both prompts the AI, knows how to use the AI, looks at the results, validates the results, basically that kind of iterative loop of somebody who knows what they're doing, trains the AI provides feedback, and so on and so forth. So in terms of overall pricing, I think right now we're still kind of in an experimental zone that the people are seeing results, but they don't quite know, is this going to make everything faster? Can I, make things cheaper? Am I now charging for AI, tools and services? So now everything's more expensive. I think right now it's kind of, 6 to 1, half dozen to the other. And we'll see where it goes.
I'm reminded of a meme I saw recently, which was, I wish I remember exactly what it was, but it was like, I didn't want to buy a CRM, so I built my own for $120,000 in AI, right? And you realize, like, yeah, and I do think it's great that AI has brought so many people awareness to things they might not have ever done, but now they also understand why there's a cost associated with some of those things.
My favorite recently I saw was somebody was saying, AI tokens have gotten so expensive, we've been hiring some junior devs to take over some of the simpler tasks.
Yeah. And I mean, it's so I think, to go back to what you're saying, my thought process is I should expect better pen testing results, I think is what I would see as a business owner, because I know I've seen some of what you alluded to at the beginning, where I've seen like, oh, we found this. And like I saw one, and it was like the glitch they use on online gaming, right?
Yeah.
And they found like that, the business network had that one of those, it was susceptible to that. And I was like, well, that's great, but like, what does that mean? Right? What does that, like, can that be used as an exploit? Is it going to impact? Like you said, it's about the impact to the business. It's about, okay, this vulnerability exists, and now that we can find so many more of them, my expectation is I should have a better pen test report with more quantifiable evidence, right?
I completely agree with that. I've talked to several people in the business that still push back on that, right? They think that once you've proven there's an issue, they move on to the next issue, because the whole point is to find as many issues as possible. I think that is true to an extent, but you have to balance it with the impact. So, for example, I think if you're seeing cross-site scripting in your pen test report, and the whole proof is just an alert box, I think that's a weak pen test. I don't think that is as valuable as, then taking that to the next step and saying, okay, can I capture session cookies? Can I pivot into a cross-site request forgery? Can I exfiltrate data? What can I do with the cross-site scripting more than just, hey, there's an alert box? Because sometimes there's not as much. And depending on what other controls are in the application, it might still be very difficult to get something significant.
Right, because if I can there's a box that lets me cross-site script something, I can't just ask it to dump the database without having the user, like the internal data DBA rights to do that, right?
Right, not with cross-site scripting, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Your cross-site scripting, you're targeting the user.
Because I can select any or whatever the DBA code is. It's been a long time.
And I think AI there is a great example to show impact, because you can, again, assuming customer permissions for the moment or using a local agent, but you can give it the application and say, here's what I'm seeing. I've got JavaScript execution that I can do. What can I exploit? What can I take out? Write, 100 line script, 200 line script that it will do in 2 minutes that nobody was going to do before that, right? So now you can actually develop a, working exploit script in very short order to truly prove, yes, once I get code execution within a user's environment, that is a high risk.
Very much so. Yeah, code execution, high risk. Yes, very much so. But
at the same time, I think most of the time nowadays, cross-site scripting in a report is considered a medium risk because you show the alert box, and most managers reviewing the report go, okay,
right,
it's an alert box. Who cares? And it's treated as a medium risk for the most part, or it's considered a low priority, high risk. And I just, maybe it's a personal thing, but I think cross-site scripting doesn't get the respect it deserves for the most part.
No, but and to that point, let's say I don't even, okay, yes, we agree on the scope of the pen test is find as much as you can. But if I'm looking at that as the manager, the CISO, whoever that company, I want to know, okay, I probably would look and go back and investigate that myself, right? With my team, maybe, and be like, hey, can we do more? Like, they're calling this a medium. Mm-hmm. Can we go ahead and take a look at it and see if it really is a medium? Is it, because the remediation, is it a compensated control? Is it, change some verification? Like, how do we fix this if we need to? And how bad is it? Like, I don't know, me coming from the GRC side of the world and the executive management side, I always want to have like critical, impact. Like it helps me make decisions, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And so at Skillable, we have our own internal risk analysis, rubric for how we do stuff and how we communicate internally so that we make sure all of our teams are all on the same page when it comes to risk. So any report, any findings that we're getting from an external vendor, we're reanalyzing them on our own. And usually they match up. It's not that, it's not that personal or anything like that. Like it's usually a one-to-one match, but we're still reanalyzing them, revalidating them, making sure that we understand where it's coming from, why, and all those sorts of things for sure. And when you talk about how should a customer respond to getting a pen test report, I think you're 100% right. You should look at it and say, okay, what are my findings here? Let me revalidate, reanalyze, just to make sure that the pen tester is doing what they're supposed to be doing. But as a manager, as an executive, just reading it or thinking about your next vendor for next year, if you're seeing a bunch of cross-site scripting with just alert boxes to prove the impact, or you're seeing other findings where they don't really take the next step to prove impact, to prove the business risk of what's going on here, and it's just a very generic list of vulnerabilities, that might be something where you're thinking, okay, like, yes, that was valuable, but could somebody provide more value?
Can somebody provide more value? So how, as a procurer of said services, like what should we be looking at in evaluating those? Like, is it, hey, just send me a sample report and they send me this as one? Is it like, how do you, especially like most companies don't have a SOC and pen test. Most companies don't even have security employees. Let's be honest, right? The majority of businesses are under 100 employees and they don't even have IT people. So for all of these organizations, how are they supposed to know that like I'm getting a good pen test or I'm hiring the right pen tester?
That is an excellent question. And if I knew the golden answer to resolve that, I'd write a book, I'd make millions, and I'd be done with this. But the real basics is it's tough. It is a tough question. And I do think ultimately you don't know until you go through the test and you see the results. What you can do to cover your bases and do your best with it is to review their methodology, to try to understand, is this how much manual testing is going on here, or are they really just using tools and automated scripts and those sorts of things? I think a sample report is valuable to, again, kind of look at that and see, again, am I seeing a bunch of alert boxes? Am I seeing proven impact? Am I seeing step-by-step exploitation steps, right? It's basically a repeatable process so that I can take it on my own and redo what they found and validate it. Or am I seeing a lot of kind of hand waving or generic descriptions and stuff like that? which is difficult for a sample report because
Mm.
obviously they can't get personal about a particular. So there does tend to be a lot of generic hand waving in a sample report. But
Right.
again, I think it's one of those things you have to give it your best judgment. Is it hand waving because it's a sample report and they're trying not to disclose any sensitive information, or is that just their standard and those sorts of things? Then finally, I would say referrals. Asking other customers or something like that. Hey, how was your experience? What was the actual results and test like?
So I'm curious more on the AI side a little bit.
Mhm.
We established that it helps everybody do things faster or more. I've almost said more better, more in depth, right? It gives the hands-on pen tester an edge. Why is it that AI can't just go on its own and be as good as like a human?
So right now, I think it's definitely experience. It's definitely the tools, I would say. I'm not an expert on AI specifically here. I'm more on the pen testing side. So what I've seen from AI is we're still seeing bias problems. We're still seeing hallucination problems. We're still seeing essentially made up answers and things like that. I used Copilot relatively recently to help me write a PowerShell script, and it just made up a module, right? I tried to import it. It looked all really good. Yeah. And then I ran it. It's, got the error. Hey, this doesn't exist. I went back to Copilot and said, do I have to import something? And Copilot just, nope, that doesn't exist. My bad.
Yeah.
So, and when you're talking about a pen test and, analyzing essentially unique functionality, trying to find stuff that nobody's found before in terms of vulnerabilities, in terms of exploit paths and those sorts of things, that's very hard to do when you're still worried about hallucinations, when you're still worried about bias, when you're still worried about, what kind of analysis is it doing here? One of my biggest complaints about AI, particularly in pen tests, is it's a bit of a black box, and it's not like a script. It's not like a bash script where you can look at it, you read it, and you say, okay, I understand. If I give it this input, I get that output every single time. It's not. AI is very different. It'll give you different responses. It'll give, even if it's ultimately essentially the same, but the wording might be different, or the nuances might be different. It might phrase it slightly differently, and that can lead to the next problem and the next problem, because the more steps you have, then we start to have essentially the banana telephone game. The telephone game where the first person doesn't know what the last person doesn't know what the original message was anymore, because it's gone through so many rounds. And the AI is kind of the same problem to an extent, right? Because of the way that they do it. It's not a one-to-one input to output as much anymore. So ultimately, so even today, we're seeing that with even your casual findings, right? It's still very much the AI can make it faster and automate it. And 9 times out of 10, it's perfect. You got it, the whole thing. But you still need that experienced professional to look at it and say, yes, that is right. I've got enough experience. I know what the output should be, and I can see that that's right, or I can validate it if I need to. But again, they're not going to do every single one necessarily, but they're at least validating, they're reviewing enough of them. And I think as AI, what people will still say is, oh, well, AI will keep getting better and better and better. I think, yes, it will. So there'll be more of those that we can rely on AI for. But there's always going to be that next tier of vulnerability, of exploit, of whatever it might be, that you need the experienced engineer involved in that iteration process, because AI doesn't know unless you've prompted it. It can do some exploring, but again, all that exploring is so much more effective, even from the AI's perspective, when an engineer who knows what they're doing is guiding it.
Right. An engineer has to guide it. And it's interesting because I hadn't really thought about it in too deeply until before we were getting ready for this chat. But like the idea that they have to, like, it has to be prompt. I can't just be like, hey, go do a pen test on my network. And it's like, okay, cool. I know what you need. and it goes and does it. It's still like, I think that's something important because again, you got CTEM and all of these automated platforms, which ultimately have people behind them effectively doing a lot of that too, while the testing is running in its own. So that always kind of that educated me a little bit there, made a little more, because I was always thinking the human creativity part is what I think it can't do yet. The idea that, and this is probably a well-known one it can do, but this is an example, like, being able to upload a resume with code in it that's in white text so the HRIS system reads it and runs it, right? AI is not going to come up with that idea necessarily right now, I don't think, without being prompted. If you just tell it, hey, it's using Workday, it's not going to be like, oh, unless it knows it's been trained, it's susceptible to that, it's configured. So it's heuristic.
Or I would say even today, some of the more advanced models, to your point, I do agree. I think, again, if you have that engineer, though, that can go back and forth with the AI agent, and basically they come up with the idea together, right? He'll say, here's the inputs, right? I can control a PDF. I can control anything on it. I can send it to so-and-so. I've got the email body. Now what can I do with it? And they essentially threat model it together, bouncing it back and forth. I have not come up with any 0 days myself using this kind of method. Right. But internally, I am doing a lot of that, of just kind of using it as a peer to an extent to bounce ideas off of and threat model and to discuss. Okay, I will say on some of it, again, kind of with the different agents. So I've now done a lot with Claude. Claude is very overeager, right? If you ask it for any sort of output, it will default to like a Word doc or an Excel spreadsheet, even when you really just want it to give you the result in the chat that you're doing.
Right.
And then Copilot is, I think, not as powerful as Claude overall, but it's better at just answering the question that you've asked.
Right.
And not going beyond that. So then kind of the same way, you have to be very, very careful about how you prompt and what kind of questions you're asking, because it could lead the AI into a totally different path towards something that you don't really want it to do. And like you say, you can't just say, go pen test, because it's going to make all kinds of assumptions. It's going to do all sorts of things. It's going to define scope in its own way. It's going to decide what is or isn't allowed in terms of testing. So having that engineer always on the keyboard, to clarify that, to, again, iterate through, this works, that doesn't work, let's figure it out together. So much better. Yeah.
I did see an early stage company last year when they presented. I was like, oh, great, another AI pen testing tool. But it wasn't really so much. It was it watched the screen. And so as the pen tester, it would see what you were doing and be like, oh, you should try a cross-site script here. Oh, you need to go check out, like, here's maybe somewhere you can pivot because you saw that. And I was like, oh, it's kind of a training tool. I was like, because it has that data. And I was like, that's pretty smart. And it's not automated so much as, like, again, taking the June, because I look at the rest of our industry. Well, similar to, you've even said it, right? You need that engineer to prompt it. Our whole industry is becoming that way, where AI is going to take away a lot of the little stuff or the entry level stuff, which means we need very experienced people to be able to manage that and execute against it. But if there's no more people learning that basic stuff, like, I don't understand, like, that's a new career path that's going to have to come out. So
I think people probably spend less time, trying to learn those sorts of things. But I remember also when I was training, when I was studying, cybersecurity, we learned buffer overflows, and we learned how to exploit them. Nowadays, there's no buffer overflows. No buffer overflow, like, not in modern programming or anything like that. Like, it doesn't exist. It exists in legacy things that are way back, that are still active or something like that. But 1 second. Not right now, please. Give me a moment. I know I'll come up in a moment. Give me a few more minutes, please. Give me a few more minutes, please. Okay.
All good. I can edit it out.
I figured you could.
Yeah.
He's home from school, and he doesn't start camp till next week.
I gotcha. So I want to ask this is my last question here, because I've done I've written a couple of blog pieces about it now, and I have very strong opinions about it, and have kind of been in some people's comments about it too. Frontier AI, which is turned off now, I guess, basically too. But okay, finds a bajillion freaking vulnerabilities. Like what's Nat say about all that?
I would say we've had vulnerability scanners finding a bajillion vulnerabilities for years and years and years. The trick is not, it goes back to the whole discussion about the CVSS score, right? I got a CVSS score 10.0, critical vulnerability. Everyone goes, okay, is it exploitable, right? What is somebody exploiting it right now? Is it on the external network or is it on the internal network? Is it something that somebody can actually get to? Or do they need to social engineer first? Do they need to get credentials first? Do they need to pivot from something else? So the fact that you're just finding vulnerabilities, sure, no problem. Okay. I mean, I think it's good, right? Let's, get them into a backlog of some kind. Let's start categorizing them. Let's look at them. That's great. But ultimately, no, I don't, is that impressive? Not particularly. It's impressive if it can actually find something that is exploitable. And that's really the key.
Right. I love, find things that are exploitable. That's going back to what we said at the beginning. Like, I love that there's people who are excited about cybersecurity now because they see this and it's like, but who cares? It's the same. Every one of us has ever done it. Once we learn something new and you go over and talk to the people who do it and they're like, so that's like, it's like tying our shoes, man. So what?
Yeah.
Well, Nat, dude, this has been great, man. Where can everybody find you on the interwebs should they want to? I'm
on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect.
Yeah, you're Mr. Big Shot. Got one of them special badges and everything. All linked in on the secrets. All right, man. Well, thank you for your time. This has been great.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. Follow Will and the podcast on LinkedIn /WillClue. Visit WillClue.me for information on services he offers to help your cyber or tech business grow. Until next time, Synaculator.